I have a second channel, Cube Comp MTDX.
Hey everybody, here we have this Dynex 350 watt power supply. I actually have two of these units. These were pulled from two part systems I got recently from a friend of mine. And I want to take the opportunity to go and give you a tour of these things. One thing I've always been critical of some of the stuff that Best Buy has sold is how it tends to be overpriced. For example, the 400 watt units they used to sell for quite a while under the Dynex branding. I think those things at one time were selling for $79.95 or something like that in store, which was pretty much a ripoff for what you got. Now we're talking around the late 2000s era, so 400 watts was a little more relevant then, but still, for what you got, was just not a really good value. Now this here is an older offering. This power supply, I believe, preceded the Hunky manufactured 400 watt units. This is made by a totally different OEM known as Shenzhen Chai Yun. Yeah, some OEM out of China, obviously. Here's you look at the label on the side. So it seems like an issue with a lot of Dynex units, power supplies, is capacitors. I've got two over here, two of the 400 watt units that hardly have any use on them. And they've got at least one or two failed capacitors in them. And some of them actually, the caps just failed with the unit sitting in storage. Like when I got them, all the caps were flat on top, but I noticed over time I had looked inside both of them, and I noticed some of the caps were bulging up on top. So this unit here was purchased, or both of these units, I'll show you the other one in this video as well, same model. Both of them were purchased around, I want to say 2005. They were installed in two different 2004 model HP desktops. The owner, she purchased these units to upgrade the original, probably Best Tech or Hyper made power supplies to run a graphics card, which required a little power connector, which ironically is powered off with a floppy disk connector. Yeah, old HEP cards. So it kind of makes me question whether the power supply upgrade was really even necessary, but that's beside the point. So these units that were sold around 2005, I'd say are pretty dated in design even for that time period. Now look at this, 350 watts, but these are very 5 volt heavy units, 30 amps on the plus 5 volt rail. That would have been relevant in about 2001. Same goes for the presence of the minus 5 volt power lead, you know, this white wire. Modern motherboards don't need that. In most modern power supplies to completely omit that wire from the ATX connector. So we have 19 amps on the 12 volt rail. I've got 300 watt power supplies that put out more than that. Yeah. So yeah, there's your minus 5 volt rail. Plus 5 volt standby, which is 2 amps, which is typical. Both of these units, guess what? They have failed capacitors in them. Both of them. Now they do work. I did test the computers out that they came in, and they did power up. So I did take the time to blow these out with the air compressor, as they were pretty filthy inside, but there's still some dust in them. So let's go ahead and void the original sticker and have a look inside this thing. And I should mention, for connectors you get a 20 plus 4 pin, you get a 4-pin CPU power connector, which about all the cabling except for, well, I mean, looks like all the peripheral cables are using 20 gauge wiring, and it looks like all but maybe the 5 volts, the grounds, and this 12 volt are running on 20 gauge on the main connector. Generally you want to have 18 gauge, but anyways, again, I guess I could say, as I started out this video, well, I'm not the, yeah, it's coming out. Alright. When I started out this video, I talked about how Best Buy sold their power supplies for a huge amount of money. And I'm sure these probably sold for a good bit of money too. Perhaps maybe around the $50 to $60 range, who knows. Now for that kind of money, you should be able to easily get yourself a quality power supply that will last you many years and not have any issues with failing caps or anything like that. But this is what you get in the Dynex 350 watt power supply. It's not terrible by any means. I mean, it does seem to be a pretty solid built power supply. I'd say pretty solidly built for 350 watts. Good heat sinks, pretty decent heat sinks. So it looks like the fan controller is on its own little secondary board, which is okay. It is soldered into the main PCB. It's interesting how they crammed all of the input filtering and AC rectification up here in this area. And this whole spot back here is pretty much empty. And look at this, guys. We got this cap right here. That tells us this is most likely a half-bridge topology unit. So not a very efficient design. It's a rather dated design. 2 transistor forward would have been better for something like this. I mean, it would have been slightly better than than half bridge, but yeah, this is what Best Buy was selling to you in around 2004, 2005. And given this, yeah, this had to been purchased around 2005. Let me just look here. So if we look at the primary, you can see we have, looks to be HEC capacitors, which not exactly known as a quality brand, but the primaries, it seems like even the crap brands of primaries for the most part do okay. And if we turn around and look at the secondary, oh boy, look at all these bulging caps. Yes, we got quite a few of them. Matter of fact, I only see one that hasn't actually bulged up. I mean, at least of these larger ones. And oh yeah, there's another one right back in there that's got a nice little bulge top on it. So it looks like we have for it seems like the only somewhat reputable brand of cap in here is this TPO, which TPOs are not that great to begin with. So Best Buy's markup is what would get you this back in the day. Now the thing about the TPO caps is they do tend to mark a date on them. Okay, February of 2006. So this thing was made in 2006. So serial ATA was already relevant at the time, at least for hard drives. I mean, it was computers manufactured around 2006 were already starting to include SATA hard drives, and some were probably starting to include SATA DVD and CD drives. However, that didn't really catch on much more until the late 2000s. But This thing has no SATA connectors. Now the computer it was installed in had all IDE drives, so that wasn't a problem. This thing had all the needed connectors for the system it came out of, but the fact that they were selling us an 06 meant that you would have likely had to have purchased at least 1 or 2 SATA adapters to plug into your hard drives in your computer at that time. So, yeah. Here's a look at the beginning of the filtering stage. You have this X cap across the live and neutral. Do have certified Y class capacitors over here between live and ground and neutral and ground. We have 2 common mode chokes, one here and one here. The primary caps are 470 microfarads. In my opinion, that's quite low for a 350 watt unit. Just to put it in perspective, the Bestech ATX 25012Z 250 watt power supplies I have on hand I need to recap. They have, I want to say they have 560 microfarad units in them, or maybe that was the 300 watts. But a lot of times I will see 560 or 680 microfarad caps on this older style design with the voltage doubler switch, with the voltage doubler circuit. You would have these 2 caps that are in series with each other, and in a decent 350 watt unit, you would probably find 560 or 680 microfarad caps. I mean, I've seen even higher. The glue they use in this thing to kind of fasten things down is not exactly all that great. It's kind of known for going conductive when it goes black, like what's back there. Now that's not always the case, but that's something I've heard of. Now it wasn't that long ago that I did a video of a Bestech 300 watt power supply that exploded on me, and I couldn't quite determine for sure, but it seemed like the glue may have been the glue, which is similar to this, may have caused the fault. So yeah, so this power supply I'm going to have to repair. I will reuse it, although it is 5 volt heavy, 20 amps I think it was, or 19 amps. Yeah, 19 amps. That's enough to run a pretty basic system, even a modern system. So we'll have to pull this PCB out and replace all these failed caps. So if we look back at these other caps, it's hard to really identify a brand on them. All I see is GL, and there ain't much more than that. It's just some... Okay, HEC. Yeah, so yeah, as I mentioned earlier, HEC caps they're not really known to be all that good of quality. So we'll have to get those changed out, and this power supply it would serve its purpose as a pretty basic unit. I am disappointed to see that even units from 2006 sold at Best Buy for probably a good little markup were still old 5 volt heavy units with questionable quality capacitors. I'm looking to see if that primary cap is bulged up. Now you see I'm touching around inside here. I do want to caution y'all on that. Most power supplies do have bleeder resistors in them that discharge these 2 big bad boys pretty quickly, but you just gotta be careful. These units have been sitting unplugged for several days now. Well, actually no, several weeks actually. It's been a while since they have actually gotten power to them. So I'm gonna put the cover back on this one, and let's go look at the other one. So actually I decided to keep the other power supply over here and opened up. That way we could do a little side by side look. So both these power supplies will power the exact same model of computer. Yeah, the person, she had two of the same model of desktops from HP. So yeah, this one here is pretty much the same. It's almost like they, looking at this thing, it's almost like they had certain brands of capacitors and certain values, because it seems like. No, wait a second. Okay, my bad. Give me just a second here. Okay, so I need to make a little correction. The secondary caps in both of these, at least except for the Lone Tipo, are made by a company called KSC. Yeah, one of those brands you never really hear of. Probably for good reason. Yeah. Pretty much same deal. I got almost all the caps on the secondary. Now, bulging out. Actually, this one isn't quite as bad as the other one. Perhaps the other one actually had seen more runtime hours than this one. Or maybe not. Who knows? I mean, these caps, as I mentioned, I've had power supplies and motherboards sit for years, older motherboards to sit, and the caps just bulge up and fail in storage. So now actually running them does seem to accelerate that, but so yeah, this one's exactly the same as the other one. Looking at the two. Again, they're not terrible units by any means. These would be better than the really cheap power supplies that you would get on Newegg, but I'm sure these were not worth the Best Buy asking price for these things. I don't know what that price was. It's funny. The previous owner of those two computers, it's like she was really good at keeping keeping stuff, probably including receipts. So she probably has receipts to when she bought these things, brand new from Best Buy. Who knows? I'd be willing to bet these were probably selling for around probably $40 to $60, if not more, at the time, given how Best Buy tends to mark up stuff like this. So yeah. So again, the OEM of these units is a company known as Shenzhen Chaiyun. And highlighted there is their UL number. And just down a little ways is another power supply that I have looked at before on the channel, and it has Nokia. And it's funny, this website here has their OEM as Broadway, but actually what that is there's a little company, or there was a little company based out of, I think, California. It's a vendor that sold cheap power supplies and cases on Newegg. A little company known as Broadway Comcorp. Yeah, their products were just absolutely wonderful. Yeah, quality was not that great at all. Cheap and flimsy cases, power supplies that were just built just enough to where they will barely power your system without exploding, and sometimes exploding in the process. Yeah, I've looked at least one or two Nokia units, and I would run for them things. But anyways, with these two units, I'm going to be repairing these things. I'm going to be recapping the secondaries on these, and they should be good to go. Again, they are 5-volt heavy, but they do offer enough power on the 12-volt rails to be usable for some things. So anyways, hope y'all enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Well, everybody, that's it for this video, but don't forget there's a lot more interesting stuff on the channel to check out. Also, if this is your first time visiting this channel, feel free to subscribe to keep your channel, and also don't forget to tick the bell so that way you'll get notified of new video posts. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, but if you really didn't like it, there is the alternative option available as well. Also, feel free to check out my second channel, CubeComp MTDX. There you'll find videos about bicycling, weather, elevator tours, and all sorts of other neat, interesting stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to come back, and thank you for your support.